Today we're going to ask a provocative question. Is it possible to never visit a doctor at all and rely solely on neural networks? Today I'll be testing AI tools that allow you to find out if you have any diseases, all under a doctor's supervision. So stay tuned, it's going to be interesting. And now I'd like to welcome Tatiana Maslakova to our broadcast. Hello, Tatiana. I'm very glad to have you as a guest on our show. We have a rather complex channel about technology. But right now, there's a very relevant topic that specifically concerns artificial intelligence. And many people have started to think that maybe you don't even need to go to the doctor anymore. That's why I'd like to consult with you about this. Why don't you tell us a little about yourself, and then we'll try running our experiments with neural networks.
Hello, Svetlana. Thank you for inviting me because this really is an interesting topic. I'm very pleased to talk about this subject specifically from a technical perspective because there are so many nuances. My name is Tatiana Maslakova. I'm a pediatrician and gastroenterologist, and I consult online, so I have a lot of patients. They're spread all over the world in different countries, and indeed, we encounter different languages and different approaches. I analyze test results and assist with diagnostics. Lately, I've really started to come across treatment outcomes involving artificial intelligence more and more often.
Yes, it really is a fascinating topic since I'm constantly running various experiments with neural networks. I would be interested in discussing with you the situation that someone might have some kind of skin diseases. There is an opportunity, for example, to check all this through the vision of the GPT chat or through the application of the same skin AI. Perhaps we will start by testing 2 or 3 neural networks at once or programs that help identify skin diseases. How do you feel about this?
I support. I'm ready.
Yesterday, I really wanted to thoroughly check and evaluate how exceptionally well the AI Dermatologist application actually works in practice. I promptly downloaded it onto my personal iPhone device and then carefully uploaded a clear photograph of a child's skin rash. Subsequently, it provided me with several possible disease options and specifically suggested one of those particular conditions that it had accurately detected. It did not take responsibility for giving me self-treatment recommendations, since I tried to do this through the chatbot, to see if the bot would suggest a medication or something else. So, in this regard, the program is responsible. The background here was as follows. There was a child's rash here. It wrote that there is a very high risk of an oncological or infectious skin disease. Then it shows me what kinds of lesions might occur, phototherapy, and how all of this can help avoid the disease. But here it doesn't give any specifics about what I should do. Then at the end, it gives a conclusion and writes, Populus Coamos disorders 96%. Do you think it guessed the diagnosis correctly?
Let's start with the fact that when someone without a medical background, say a mother, takes a photo of this child, well, up to 4 years old, but in any case, a small child, if the mother in a panic sees this, she takes off the t-shirt, sees the rash, takes a picture, uploads it to the program, and sees that there is a high risk of an oncological or infectious disease, then you'll have to save the mother first, not the child. So there's this kind of situation here. And secondly, it's like an aggressive approach right away. They scare you, but at the same time, they don't take responsibility for the recommendations or anything like that. And of course, it's always important not just to look at the rash, but also at how the child is feeling. With the diagnosis, this diagnosis is morphological, which means the program tells you what kind of rash it is, what type of rash. That's a technical point. But the reason suggested by this program, high oncological risk and infectious risk, is what the patient will pay the most attention to. In reality, when mothers send me a photo like this, Tatiana Vladimirovna, can you tell us what this is? I always ask, how is the child feeling? So is this what the program wrote under the word history, right? So these are the nuances. And I can definitely say from this rash that there is no need to panic right now. Even if the child has a high fever and this kind of rash, there is no need to panic. There are, however, red flags. There are millions of rashes in the world, just tons and tons of different kinds. But there are red flags, certain rashes that are dangerous. I definitely wouldn't talk about oncology or follow this program's recommendation for dermatoscopy. It's not needed here. So after reading the words high risk of oncological and infectious causes and dermatoscopy, a person will start looking for a dermatologist and for dermatoscopy. First of all, that's not quick. Especially abroad, it's almost impossible to find such a service quickly, even within the next month. In Ukraine, you can generally find such a service within the next week. But any dermatologist will ask, why did you come to see me? Dermatoscopy is mainly intended for diagnosing moles, and it's a really in depth, thorough examination. Here, if the child feels fine and the rash isn't itchy, we don't touch it at all. It will go away on its own. If, along with this rash, the child has mild cold symptoms like a respiratory infection, right? Sneezing, coughing, maybe a slight fever. Even if the fever is as high as 39 degrees, we still don't touch it. If the child is scratching it and we suspect some kind of allergy rather than an infection, by the way, in this case, the program didn't indicate an allergy. Here it's 50-50 between infection and allergy. That is specifically with this picture. So it's 50-50, not oncology, but either infection or allergy. If the child is scratching it, if the rash is, as they say, spreading before your eyes and causing discomfort, then we might suspect fruit, berries, cake, some kind of cream, something like that. In other words, some kind of food allergy. Or in extreme cases, this particular rash could also be contact allergy. For example, if the child has this kind of rash only on the stomach, right where the t-shirt ends. It could be that the mother washed the clothes with a new detergent, put them on the child, and the child developed a rash exactly where the skin touched the t-shirt washed with the new detergent. So we always ask about this. I ask the mother, what do you think caused it? And most often, if it's an allergy, mothers immediately say, well, I put on a new t-shirt, or we were visiting someone and ate, I don't know, some papaya or dragon fruit.
Interesting. Now let's try going into ChatGPT, uploading this photo, and see what it tells us. Because there are several options, either upload it or record, for example, a screen recording. Yes, we can enable visual recognition. So I think we're going to experiment with the phone now. That will be more interesting.
Because ChatGPT is currently the most accessible and indeed the most popular, so to speak, of all the available options.
You can see it, right?
Yes.
Hello. Tell me, please, my child has a rash on their body. I don't know. Maybe it's an allergy or maybe something bit them. Can you tell me what to do? What kind of condition is this?
It's hard to say for sure, but it looks like some kind of rash or irritation. The confidence level is moderate. If you need precise recommendations, you can check a source. For example, you can find general information here. NHS.uk conditions, rashes, babies and children. In general, this is not exact. This is just an example of a source.
So you won't prescribe me any medication? What should I do right now? Maybe take some analgin, paracetamol? Well, tell me what to do. Or go to an ambulance.
I would say this, confidence is low. I do not recommend specific medications. If the situation seems serious, it is better to consider professional help. A source of general information, such as http.mayoclinic.org, first aid. But this is just an example, not a guarantee.
So, did you hear what our guru told us?
Yeah.
Interesting. Now let's do a second thing. I tested it through visual recognition. That is, we took a photo of it on camera. There's also the option to upload this photo directly into the ChatGPT platform and see how it responds to us. We'll proceed to open this very same platform as it has been widely recommended by numerous prominent bloggers. To begin, simply locate and click the designated button, then initiate a visual recording using your camera, and the system will comprehensively provide you with all the necessary information and details. But I wouldn't want to do it that way. So now let's try uploading a photo of the same child here. I asked it what this rash is, and let's see what it answers us now. We're looking at the answer now. It says it's an allergic reaction to food. Maybe. So it gives possible answers. Either it's heat rash or a viral rash. That is, in the previous case, we made a recording, we made a video of the actual area of irritation. It replied that it wasn't sure and sent us to a website where we could look up these conditions. But from another angle, we uploaded this photo and it gave us possible diagnoses. But again, now we can check whether it gave us the option to take any medication or maybe it gave us some recommendations. It says that it's important to accurately distinguish the symptoms, like if there's a fever, itching, the general condition, and how widespread the rash is. So it asks questions and clarifies things. For example, we can write that we have a fever, right? That's exactly what all our listeners, our subscribers are doing right now. They describe all the diagnoses, all the symptoms. And in the end, does this lead to self-medication? We're getting to that now. There's a fever all over the body.
It's 39.
Okay, all right, that's 39. It's all over the entire body, covering everything.
Let's say it's everywhere, arms, legs, stomach, but there's no itching.
ChatGPT said that this is an infectious disease, not an allergy or heat rash. And again, it lists possible options: roseola, rubella, measles, scarlet fever, chickenpox, and describes what might be accompanied by this symptom, that you should see a doctor, a pediatrician, or call an ambulance, because it's impossible to make an exact diagnosis without an examination. So it doesn't take on the role of a doctor and tells me to monitor the temperature, that is, to bring it down, give the child fluids, and not to use any ointments before consulting a doctor.
I agree with these recommendations. Monitor, reduce the fever, give more fluids, and don't apply anything. Let's put it this way. Since 2019 up to now, I have a group on Viber called The Pediatrician Answers. It's free, and on average, there are always about 500 people. That is, some people leave, for example, when their children grow up and others join. I never aggressively advertise it anywhere, so it's kind of a latent group. It was created back in 2019 specifically for this kind of chat, like GPT. I told all my clients, when something happens, it's better to write in the group than to Google it. At the very least, I'll tell you what to do, where to go, or if you shouldn't do anything at all. Well, I'll help guide you further. The only rule that was and still is in this group is not to upload photos, because even something like a rash can provoke different reactions from different people. For example, if it's my child's rash, I react to it calmly. But if it's a rash on someone else's child, like, I don't know, some spot on a toe, right? People might find that off-putting. And to avoid sharing personal data, it's forbidden in this group to upload test results that contain any patient information. So those are sent privately. And since 2019, there have been a lot of such situations. Just like we asked ChatGPT now, a temperature of 39, a rash appeared. Actually, this photo was also taken from there, and in this chat, a pediatrician responds. Why did I remember this chat? It's about emergency medical services. If ChatGPT writes a response like it just did to this mom, we won't be thinking about the mother's age, right? Because it also depends on the age. A mother's reaction depends on her age, her personality, the situation, the country she's in, how anxious she is, and how panicked she feels. Not every country will send an ambulance for this kind of rash. And even in Ukraine, not every country will send an ambulance for a temperature of 39, and abroad you might even have to pay a fine. So when on a Sunday, ChatGPT tells a mom to go see a pediatrician and also lists all these diagnoses, especially measles and scarlet fever, right? If a mom sees measles and scarlet fever on the list and it says to go to a pediatrician or call an ambulance, a normal mom will call an ambulance. And that can cause problems. Neither an ambulance nor a pediatrician is needed for this child with a temperature of 39 degrees at 10 o'clock on a Sunday morning. So we give medicine, drink, fluids, and wait. As I understand it, I don't use this chat myself. I haven't used it even once. Not even once through my daughter, just for a laugh when we had some topic of conversation. Do you need to talk to ChatGPT in a special way, or are there particular methods or approaches that are more effective when interacting with it?
You can ask a question briefly and it will give you superficial information, but the more detailed your request, the better the answer. But yesterday, when I was preparing for your broadcast, I tried different phrases with it, like, you are a pediatrician, you are a professional, you have a doctorate. Well, tell me, what should I do? And it says, I can't. I want you to consult a doctor. So it didn't take responsibility. Although if you write the prompt in that tone, like, you are a professional doctor, write this and that for me, well, as a rule, it gives a conclusion. That is, but still, apparently, the algorithms are set up so that it doesn't give recommendations the client can directly use. Of course, there are always workarounds for how to do all this. There are triggers, there are special tricks for this, but that's a topic for another episode. That is, I try not to give this to people because I sincerely wish that people would go to other people and take the opportunity to talk, to meet, to get advice. It's better to do it there.
Thank you so much for always being right here on my side.
People have different ways of thinking, different ways of perceiving things structurally, And as practice shows, on my channel, I always try to convey to people that the main thing is not to do harm. Of course, I know how to write this, how to put it all in the same chat, and many people do just that, even doctors. But it's better, much better, to go to someone who understands this, who has practical experience. Although, if we take, for example, that many doctors now upload photos, get conclusions, and make diagnoses themselves right in this GPT chat, I suspect that this trend is going to change dramatically very soon. There could be negative consequences.
So, can we continue experimenting with the chat in this same context, in this same window? All right. So, we've already written, we've gone to the pediatrician, didn't turn off the computer, and now we're back. And what did it advise us here? Let's write. The pediatrician said it's roseola. What should I do next?
Here's what it says. It's good if the diagnosis of roseola or 3-day fever has been confirmed by a doctor. What usually happens? First, there's a high fever for 3 or 4 days, then the temperature suddenly drops and a rash appears on the skin. He says to monitor the temperature. If it rises above 38.5 again, use an antipyretic, paracetamol and ibuprofen as the doctor advised. Plenty of fluids, water, compote, tea to prevent dehydration. Rest. The child may be lethargic. That's normal. The rash doesn't require ointments or pills. It will go away on its own. Contacts. Roseola is contagious during the fever period. After the rash appears, the child is no longer a risk to others. So it's only contagious during the fever? See a doctor immediately. If the rash changes appearance, becomes blistered, has hemorrhages, turns bluish, if the fever lasts more than 4 days or returns. If the child is extremely lethargic, refuses to drink, or has seizures. That's what he wrote to me, and he recommends, do you need a checklist for parents on what is and isn't allowed with roseola? So, it's a small file where he meticulously writes down precisely what to do and what not to do.
Well, ask him for that checklist.
Antipyretics, rest, proper ventilation, light clothing so the child doesn't overheat, calmly monitor the rash. By the way, that's a good phrase. Calmly monitor the rash. It will disappear on its own in 2 to 4 days.
Yes.
He says what not to do. Don't apply brilliant green creams or ointments to the rash. Don't give antibiotics. Don't overdress the child. Don't take them to daycare or have guests over until the fever is gone. See a doctor again if such and such happens.
I completely agree with him here. Absolutely, totally. So basically, if, say, a doctor writes, hello, ChatGPT, right? I have a patient with roseola. What should I write to them? What should I recommend? And it will give this list. And accordingly, if the mother comes home, let's say the diagnosis is confirmed. In what case? Let's look at a few scenarios. A mother with her 2-year-old child comes to the emergency room to the pediatric on-duty doctor. The mother comes in with her 2-year-old child who has a rash, and the pediatrician says, your child has roseola. Tomorrow, go see your doctor. For now, just give fever reducers. No need to apply anything to the skin. So, the pediatric on-duty doctor, I worked as the head of the pediatric department for 4 years, and there were a lot of night shifts, 6 or 7 at a time. And at night, the on-duty doctor is juggling between the emergency room, the infectious disease ward, pediatrics, and then the maternity ward calls saying, we have a woman in labor, come deliver the baby. That's how it is. So your mind is overwhelmed, and all of this, we call it compliance in medicine. You have to structure the whole conversation so that the mother understands and you understand, and you sort it all out, right? All of you. Maybe I need to repeat something. There's no time for that. The doctor is overwhelmed. And if this happens at 4 a.m, the doctor isn't exactly focused. Thank God, at least he said it was roseola, that there are none of those red flags that ChatGPT also mentioned. There are no signs of brain inflammation, as he described. That would be things like a dark rash with bleeding, nausea, lethargy, seizures. So none of those scary symptoms are present. That means the child doesn't need to stay in the hospital. Go home, don't put anything on it, just give Nurofen and some water to drink. It takes literally 2 seconds. But, for example, the mother was taking a taxi with her 2-year-old child who had a temperature of 39 degrees. She's taking him back home in a taxi, and at home, I don't know, maybe she has 3 more kids and her husband is getting ready for work. So the mom is overwhelmed and the doctor is overwhelmed too. The main thing the mom took away from all this is that there's nothing dangerous. But when all that adrenaline wears off, the mom asks herself, okay, so what am I supposed to do? And then she writes in ChatGPT, hi, the doctor said we have roseola. What should I do? And there she is with a glass of water or some tea. The child has already fallen asleep. She, for example, gave him some fever reducer. The fever went down. The child fell asleep. She started a load of laundry and made herself a sandwich. Okay, phew, I can finally breathe out. The marathon is over. Now I'll read up on what I should do. This is where support is really important because I always tell mothers, even after my consultations, listen to me now, but I'll send you everything later, or even record my recommendations as a voice message so you can listen to them again when you're calm. Sometimes it doesn't matter what the doctor said. Sometimes what matters is what the mother understood. We recently had a consultation where both the gynecologist and I were advising a patient online, and the gynecologist kept asking follow-up questions. She explained everything and then said to the patient, Katerina, now tell me what you understood. We recorded the consultation and sent the audio to Katerina in the chat. The consultation lasted a whole hour, and then literally 4 or 5 days later, she writes to me, Tatiana, thank you for recording the consultation. Thank you for sending it to me. Telegram doesn't send the recording right away, not in the first few minutes, only after a day. Thank you for sending it to me. I've been listening to it again. I honestly don't understand where I was at the time, that I didn't hear any of this. So I can listen to it again when I'm calm. That's how we do consultations with a cosmetologist, for example, as well. I'm the cosmetologist and the client, right? And we record this consultation because right now there might be a lot of multitasking going on in your head. In this particular experiment, ChatGPT really helps the mom organize everything and focus. If we talk about comparing artificial intelligence to Google, I still lean towards artificial intelligence. Google used to do a lot more harm with its recommendations than what I see now from patients' queries. For example, over the weekend, a patient of mine sent me a photo of her child's rash. She told me that right away. I ran this rash through ChatGPT, but I can't figure out what I should do now. Specifically in her particular life situation. She lives in a small village in a settlement in Germany. It's Sunday, 10 in the morning. What should she do? ChatGPT told her, go to the doctor immediately. We figured out that it wasn't urgent to see a doctor because the rash had already been there for a week and a half and it wasn't bothering the child. So she can get through Sunday and go on Monday morning. Because for her to get from this village to the nearest hospital, she can only take the train, which will be delayed, and it'll take about 2 hours. That's it, by commuter trains. They don't have a car. So all this logistics right now is unnecessary. All this fuss. And with this rash, if they come to the emergency room in Germany, to a children's clinic, they'll be categorized as non-urgent, and the waiting time in the emergency room will be at least 5, in average 5 hours. Maybe that's the minimum, I don't know. But on average, patients like that wait 4 to 5 hours in the emergency room. What does that mean? It means that the mother and child will waste the whole day in the heat.
Tatiana, thank you for joining us on the air. Today you opened our eyes to how we should act. Because there are technologies, but there are also real people. That's precisely why we will always endeavor to adhere to the golden mean, so to speak. That's why we profoundly need you, dedicated doctors, and we also truly need the assistance of artificial intelligence. So we will always be incredibly happy to have you if you decide to join us on the air again in the future. And to our viewers, please leave your comments, write your questions, and reach out to Tatiana using her contact information, which I'll leave in the description below this video.
Stay healthy.
I'm not a doctor, but I am a user, and for me it's important to know when I should rush to see a doctor and when I can trust artificial intelligence. And you know what? The most valuable thing isn't the diagnosis, but the attention. Share this broadcast with those who are looking for answers. Like, comment, and leave your thoughts. I'll leave Tatiana Maslakova's contact information in the description below this video. And I also encourage you to share your opinion. Have you ever tried self-treatment with artificial intelligence, and how did it turn out? Wishing everyone a great day, good health, and prosperity. Yours, News. Goodbye. The final mile in data protection is always up to us. Which AI product do we choose, open or closed? What does it do with our words, our searches, our history? In medicine, artificial intelligence can suggest, guide, and help you ask your doctor the right questions. But it is neither a diagnosis nor a cure. The more aware we are as users, the safer our digital future will be. And the final decision always rests with the human.